Hi everyone, welcome back to Plum Mashable. So today what I thought I'd do is show you how I've been making my little inserts for my new traveler's notebook that's going to be a bit of an art, craft, kind of messy journal. So if you want to see how I've made these cute little books, then just keep watching. Okay, so I've just pulled this little book out just so I can show you sort of what it looks like before we start making it. So it's got this craft paper. If you saw my Kaisercraft haul, it's not watercolor paper, it's sketch paper, but it feels a bit nicer than some of the other stuff I've had a look at. And all I've done is I've just stitched it together. So what I'm going to do is show you sort of the how I've cut them out. Like, it's not hard, but give you all the measurements and stuff, and then just show you how I do this stitching. So to start off with, you're going to need some of that paper, or any paper that's sort of crafty kind of paper. You could do the same thing using any basic paper you wanted to. Do whatever you like. You can use it with dot grid or with graph grid or whatever you feel like using. But like I said, this one's for my little arty crafty journal, so we're going to use it with this one. So what we need to do is cut each of these pages down to 24 centimeters long, and just mark out 12 while you're here, because that's going to happen too, by 17.5 centimeters high. So then you're going to get your paper trimmer in. Oops. Got some of Monday's video there. Next Monday, not this Monday. So you're going to cut, and I've just realised I put that in the wrong spot, but anyway, we'll do this first. We'll go that way first. So just line this up. I'm not being particularly like 100% perfect with this, mainly because you are going to have a little bit of overhang anyway, so it's not the worst thing in the world if I'm just slightly too big or too small. These don't have to be perfect. That's my favourite thing about them. So you've cut those. So then you need to do that. For these books, they're 10 pages, so that's 5 ones of these, and we sew them together. Any more than that and they feel a little bit too thick, and they don't really fold up nicely and stay in the notebook. So I'm going to cut all these out. I'm going to go a bit faster, so I'm going to measure all these out and cut them, and I'll be back in just a sec. Okay, so once they're all cut, you're going to end up with 5 that are roughly the same size. That's actually pretty darn good. I'm rather proud of myself right now. So just put it so that the one that has that mark with the 12 is at the top, because that's going to be our guide piece. So from there, what you need to do is get yourself a cover. And when I say cover, you basically just need a piece of scrapbook paper. Any kind of scrapbook paper will do. Any kind of scrap paper you've got hanging around will do, as long as it's big enough. So all I do, just because it's not really a big deal, I just sort of roughly gauge. You could do the 17.5 if you want and actually measure it out. I don't, just because sometimes I end up cutting a little bit off the bottom anyway to make it like that nice square shape at the bottom. So I just tend to cut it so that I've got a little bit of overhang at the bottom, and then I'm going to have overhang on both the sides, because that will have definitely some stuff that we'll have to cut. So then what you need to do is put it in your little, put it all together. You're going to need 4 bulldog clips of some description. Any size is fine as long as they're bulldog clips. Get yourself a piece of scrap from one of the offcuts here and use that to protect your pages. So you put that over that so it doesn't damage anything. Clip it down and shut it. And then do the same thing all the way around it. So you need 4. You can see this has had a bit of a workout in the last couple of days while I've been making these books, because these pieces of paper have a little couple of marks on them, but that's all here. Oh, whoops, I just remembered something. Hold on, reverse. I forgot to do my actual mark line down the side. Duh. So hold on, come back to that. So you need just that first page that has your 12 on it. I'm just grabbing my scoreboard because I find it easier to score using this, but you just basically need to find the center of it. It's not really that difficult, but I have the scoreboard, so I will use it. So you just find that score line, score down there. Depending on how crazy you are, you can rub that out if you wish, that little mark, because it's not really needed anymore. So, because I'm crazy, I'm going to. Then you have to put all this back together and actually do that again. So go back and do the clipping part again, just all the way around. If you don't have bulldog clips too, pegs would actually do fine. I was just thinking about that. What if you didn't have bulldog clips around the house? Pegs would actually work. It just needs to be able to hold your sort of booklet in place while you do all this, so that it goes all through one as one bit. So then what you need to do is grab your ruler back in, and then along that line, which is sometimes a little hard to see now, but it's only because of the light that I've got in here, you need to grab yourself something sharp and something that can poke through things. So a skewer will do really, really well. Something, if you've got like a metal skewer out of the kitchen, that'll work. I happen to have this little Cricut stylus thing for weeding vinyl, so it's been working really nicely, so I'm going to go with that. And then what you need to do is just along that score line, which I can just see, you just need to mark every half a centimetre. So because this is 17.5, I like to just bring it in just a little bit, so it's sort of in 2 centimetres or 2 millimetres at the top and 3 millimetres at the bottom. You don't have to be perfect with it. And then you just need to mark roughly, as in don't push all the way through, just mark all the way along at the half centimetre mark. So like I said, don't push all the way through. You're just making the holes as a guide, and you'll push through a bit later on. Don't stress too much about them being perfectly spaced either. It doesn't have to be perfect. As long as you've got the main sort of gist of it and they're not one smaller than the other, it'll be fine. Now if you have a sewing machine that can handle this kind of paper, you can use that. I hand stitch mine for 2 reasons. Number one, I have a curse when it comes to sewing machines. I feel like either I'm doing it wrong or something, but I can never make them work. They always just die on me. But number two, this is probably a little bit too thick for my sewing machine. I've got one of the We Are Memory Keepers Stitch Happy ones, and it's probably just a little bit too much for it. So then all you do is just go get a little bit of leverage underneath, and you just want to poke deeper, just so you get just the very small peak on the other side. And that's just so that your needle is going to push through that just a little bit easier. So just go through and poke them all again. When you get to the point that it's sort of in the middle, just flip it and do it the other way. The leverage helps. Don't worry too much either if you go too deep, or if you push all the way through. It's not going to, all you can do is make a slightly deeper hole on the other side, which makes going through with the needle easier anyway, but just doesn't end up with such a nice finish. Okay, once you're done, keep that handy because you might need it again. You need to get yourself a reasonably thick needle and some reasonably thick thread. You can use any colour you like. I like this sort of white one. This is multimedia thread, so it's a little bit thicker than normal sort of cotton that you'd use to sew with. I just picked this up from Spotlight. I think it cost me $4, so I got some washi tape stuck. And it's a bit nicer than the other kind. So this is, it does have it. It's polyester. It does have exactly how thick it is. I thought it's M82 100 meters. I don't know what that means, but I'll link it down below if I can find it. So you just really, this part's just sewing. Like if you can do a needle and thread through holes, this next part's really simple. So you just need to thread your needle. And then to start it off, I start in the middle, and you'll understand why when I get back to it. So you push through, just use one bit. You can use two if you wish, you don't have to only use one, but I just use that bit. And then what I do to hold this still is just grab yourself just a little bit of masking tape. Then you're going to stick that down on your piece that's not part of your book. And that way you've got a nice strong kind of base until you finish your knot off, and it also keeps that string out of the way. So all you do is just do a really simple over and under stitch. Whoops, see, that's the only thing that's kind of annoying with this. It does tend to get caught on the edges a little bit. So you just do your overs and unders. And just make sure you pull it reasonably taut after each stitch, just so that it keeps the bind. And just repeat that until you get to the end, just doing one after the other. But as you can see, I'll zoom in a little bit. As you can see, I've skipped that bit there, and that's fine because when we come back, you'll fill that up. So I'm just going to go ahead to the end and then I'll come back. There, I just missed a hole, and that's easy enough to do. All you do if you do that, drop your needle off, as in take the thread straight out and unpick it, because you're not really doing a hard stitch. It's not like it's a hard thing to undo. So you basically just pull your thread out, undo the stitch, and then continue on again just by threading the needle back on. So we've got all the way to the top. So to turn around, and this is going to be really simple for anyone that's got if you know anything about sewing, all I'm going to do is just go back in the other side. So that's where I've just come out of that hole, but now it's going to hit the opposite side. And that'll fill in all the stitches along the way. Just like that. It is a little awkward to hold, I'm going to be honest. It's a slight pain in the bottom, but it's also very relaxing. So once you've gone all the way up and all the way back, so you have no missing space, so they're all up like that, you should end up that you're on the cover side. So what you need to do is come back up one more time. So you come back, whoops. I was wondering when that was going to happen. There we go. I always have a little thing, I always get just a little knot somewhere along the line that I've got to undo. Pull that back up. Then you're going to end up with both of them on the side here, on the top here. So this is when you can take all your clips off. Just pull that piece of string through so that it's free. Take all your clips off, or pegs, whatever we happen to be using. Just cut off a little bit of that excess there so it gets out of the way. And then all you can do is just tie this off. And that was why we left it in the middle and not at the top or the bottom, because that way it's in the middle, it's easy to tie off like this. So you just pull it as tight as you can. I always just do mine in a double knot. You could have someone put their finger down if you're really worried about it. I sort of just pull it tight, and then pull it tight. And then just trim off the excess. And then you've got your sewn up book. And that's not perfect. It's definitely not 100% straight, and I'm a bit rough with the needles, so I tend to end up with this little putch lines a little bit, but that's okay. No one's going to see them anyway because they're in the corner. So then what you need to do is fold this over. You're using your stitch line as your score line, if that makes any sense. So you're pushing that down, and then you're just going to cut off the excess. So my tops and bottoms, actually my top looks good. My bottom's a bit of a mess, but that's because I left the excess on there. So we'll do the side first. So with the side, I like to just push this in. Just make sure it's as straight as it can be. Wow, I love that inside. Sorry, I'm very distracted by how pretty that inside looked. It's actually not turned out too bad. It's not perfect, but anyway. So then what you want to do is try to make this bit more straight. Grab yourself your ruler. You grab yourself a craft knife. A bigger craft knife in this particular case is better. If you've got like an old kind of paper Stanley knife kind of thing, that'll probably work a little bit better in this case because you're going to push through a lot of paper. You do waste a little bit with this, just to let you know. I'm just trying to make that straight and I can't, so I'm just not worrying about it now. So just find where your edge is. If you're a little bit worried about it, just cut off that first bit so you can see a little bit easier. So I think it's about there. You don't have to be 100% perfect. You can always come back and cut this again. So hold that down as tightly as you can, and then just cut through until you hit the bottom. That's why we have this craft mat on the bottom too, just FYI. Go. Now I always somehow make just a little bit of a mess on the end. I just trim it off like that with the knife, and that's got a pretty good edge to it. It's not perfect, but it's pretty good. Then you just need to trim off the bit on the bottom. You can do that either with your craft knife or with your scissors. I find just because I've got the knife out, it's actually easier. Oops. There you go. And there you've got your little sewn up booklet. Your spine's pretty good. Your book's pretty good. And it sits really nicely in my Mumsy Bub TN. So I'll just show you sort of how I've been doing this. So I'm going to leave it at 4, I think. I think any more than 4 starts to feel a bit much. I know there is room for 6 in here, but I think we'll just go with 4. For now, anyway. So that goes in there like that. And I've got my 4 little notebooks all ready to go. All ready to be used for anything I like. If you're someone that doesn't doesn't want to use the arty-farty kind of thing, like I said, you can use this using dot grids. You could use the same principle to make any kind of notebook you like. The other thing that you could do if you wanted to, you could actually make yourself a nice set of notebooks, like just lined paper notebooks. If you don't have a TN and you just want some notebooks, this would be an easy way to make them, just using regular everyday paper and some nice sort of coloured scrapbook paper to kind of decorate with, and it'd look really cute in just a little notebook pack that you could make that and give them to your friends if you like. But that's how I've been making these little traveler's notebook inserts for myself to use in my Mumsy Bub. I will show you along the way sort of how I use this or how it sort of all comes together. I'll probably end up making a couple more of these little notebooks to put in here. I haven't decided yet, but I will start using this in the next couple of days. I just want to show you how I make them before I do. Let me know down below if you've got an easier way to do it. Obviously the sewing machine would be easier, but like I said, not good with it. Can't really make them work. So unfortunately I just have to do it by hand. But I find the stitching kind of therapeutic, so I don't think it's the worst thing in the world. But let me know down below how you make your traveler's notebooks. Do you buy them? Do you make them? Do you stitch them by hand? Do you stitch them with your sewing machine? Do you just use staples? I'd love to know how other people do this because I'm just kind of finding my way through all of this. Leave me a comment down below. You can find me on any of my social media links. Don't forget to give this video a thumbs up if you did enjoy it, and be subscribed to my channel so you don't miss any of my other videos. Other than that, I hope you guys have an absolutely fantastic weekend, and I will see you again for decoration on Monday. Sending lots of huggles. Bye!